Hello, everyone, and welcome to Justified Jewel Podcast. I am your host, Joanne Cox. If you want to know just a little bit more about me, visit my website at justifiedjewel.com. And we've been coming to you segment after segment on this political arena of what you have a voice in. And we're having our same guest to tell you what he knows as a populist, as a person in the legislative write ups and the history behind everything. We want to welcome again Brian Winters. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you for having me back, Joanne. Always good talking with you.
Yes, thank you for being here.
So today you want to talk about prescription drugs?
Yes.
Yeah. Would it surprise you to learn that in the United States, we pay about 3 times as much for prescription drugs as other industrialized nations?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we pay an awful lot, and it's big profits for big pharma. And so there's a number of things that we can do about that in the United States. And so a lot of the things that we can do are bundled into the legislative package called the Populist Act. The package that I'm asking people to vote with me for in November so that we can collectively bargain to demand Congress pass this and upgrade our social contract and improve the quality of life for all of us. So prescription drugs. You might remember about 20, 25 years or so ago that George Bush, they passed the Medicare Part D to help seniors get prescription drugs, supposedly more affordable. And the big pharma had lots of their lobbyists in the room. And, as the United States, the government spends an awful lot of money providing, healthcare services to people. And so when it came time to negotiate for how much we should pay for all these prescription drugs, you know what they came up with, and you know what they wrote into the law?
No, I don't.
They wrote into the law that whatever the average price, the average sale price of a prescription drug was, the United States government would pay 106% of that. So we would pay above average prices. Usually, oftentimes, if you're buying mass quantities of something, usually you might expect to get a discount.
Yes.
Instead, we said, well, let's pay more. The Congressional Budget Office, the members of Congress put forward proposals to require that Washington negotiate for drug prices, and the Congressional Budget Office figures that it would save about $45 billion a year. So an extra $45 billion a year is going into the profits of big pharma because Congress has chosen not to negotiate for 20 years. Yeah. Now, there's been a little bit of progress on that. Under President Biden, he signed the Inflation Reduction Act, which we signed back in 2022. And so this year, in 2026, we started negotiating for 10 drugs, which, has definitely saved some money, but we could do better. And in fact, the Populist Act would require that we start open negotiations on all the prescription drugs that the federal government is buying.
Well, before you go on, I have a question. When you say we voted on 10,
pardon?
Why 10? Why not 8? And why not 15? Why, who came up with 10?
That was what they worked out. The members of Congress and I'm sure Big Pharma, as well as delaying it, right? Again, this law was signed in 2022, but there weren't any actual savings until 2026. And so, well, we'd do the math here, $45 billion a year in extra profits times three years at least, right? That's an extra $135 billion in profits that Big Pharma, made by pushing this back.
And so to just bring it to everyday people talk, is it that, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but is it that they picked out the ones that already cost the most, the ones that are used frequently, or the ones that people do not use as much? Do you know how those decisions were made?
I did read something on it, but I don't remember off the top of my head exactly how they picked which 10. And
Mm-hmm.
they are now negotiating for another group. I think another 15 drugs.
Okay.
But there was a mix. It wasn't like they didn't, I don't think they picked the 10 most expensive for the 10 biggest, but it
Mm-hmm.
was a mix. So as I
Okay.
recall. If
Okay.
your viewers have better information, then please leave a correction for me in the comments so that I can learn more.
Yes. Yes. And so when you say the government pays more by design, what does that mean?
That means that we wrote into the law that we would pay above average prices.
We accepted it. Is that what that means?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so what can we do about that? Well, so a number of things. First, we can get rid of that requirement that we pay above average prices and start negotiations. Um, we can also encourage competition. Are you familiar with pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. And so these are sort of the middlemen who, in theory, negotiate prices for drugs between insurers and pharmacies, and in theory, they are going to negotiate good prices. Pharmacy benefit managers also have an exception in the law when it comes to kickbacks. Most people, if you're negotiating for them, you're not supposed to be able to get kickbacks, and pharmacy
Mm-hmm.
benefit managers get an exception on that one too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, let's give Congress some credit, which is that because the outrage over the skimming that pharmacy benefit managers have been doing, that outrage has percolated through Congress, and recently, I don't remember, recently within the last year,
Okay.
Congress, in fact, has passed some restrictions and regulations around pharmacy benefit managers. Again, these are phasing in slowly, not right away. And one of the things that the Populist Act would do is accelerate those provisions so that we would better regulate pharmacy benefit managers sooner rather than later. Similarly, I think, Joanne, when we talked about healthcare, I think we talked about healthcare and how these big healthcare conglomerates, how the Populist Act would break them up. That you could be an insurer, or you could be a hospital, or you could be a pharmacy, or you could be a PBM, but you couldn't be all of these things the way that United Healthcare is, because when they control everything through the pipeline, then they can raise prices and on people because they don't have any choice when they can steer people and say, well, I'm the insurer and you have to go to this pharmacy, which I also happen to own. um, it,
Mm-hmm.
it it it's not a very competitive environment, so the Populist Act would break up those things as well.
Now, when we talk about prescription drugs, I want to throw this in as a past receptionist in the medical field, and that, you've said about kickbacks. And I know that this is ages ago, nothing current or anything like this, but they would have drug reps to come in and tell you about a new drug. So
Yeah,
they would have to pencil in time to talk to the drug rep to find out what would be good for diabetes, for what would be good for edema or what have you. And this was a selling point, and that was that drug rep's reputation and his job or her job to come in to try to sell you that drug. And just to make sure they got an appointment, what they would do is say, I will feed the office. So they come in and feed the office. And because little uh, known to the workers, they don't really know the whole story behind this. So they're just happy to get free lunch. And now the doctor is going to get some type of a kickback. And that means that I am a patient coming in. Maybe I don't need this drug, but you're on the cusp, Joanne, of getting this. So we want to try this. So now the drug rep has done his job. Now the kickback from the physician is getting something out the deal. So now they have to get me on this drug. And now the pharmacy gets something. And that is such a terrible story that I know that, I lived through that and said,
yeah,
no, I don't need this drug. I don't want
yeah.
this. And, and to just say, maybe we shouldn't be accepting lunch.
Yeah.
Let us buy our own lunch, because this, I see, is something that is very distasteful that I'm watching.
Yeah. No, it's you want the doctor, you want your doctor to give you their best opinion, you to have the best unbiased, advice that they can give you. But it's human nature, right? Is if somebody does something nice to you, to want to reciprocate. And so
Mm-hmm,
if the drug company comes in and they nicely buy lunch for your entire staff,
mm-hmm,
it's just human nature to want to reciprocate.
mm-hmm.
And so it's not that the doctors are inherently malicious, or trying to steer things in the wrong way. They could just be the human thing to do. But it is a practice that again has skewed the marketplace. Another thing that has skewed the marketplace is prescription drug advertising on TV, right?
Oh,
You might,
it's huge.
and this is,
It's
when I
huge.
was growing up, this wasn't a thing.
Mm-mm.
It was, probably in the last quarter century. And I don't have the date in front of me, but this is a relatively recent thing. And now people are bombarded. You should be afraid. You might have this disease, or you might have this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And
You might commit suicide.
yeah. And so one of the ways that this has happened was because the government, I'm spacing on exactly which agency, but they tweaked their interpretation of the law to say that you no longer had to give like the full disclosure of all the side effects and everything. You could just give an abbreviated form. And so that made it economically viable to run all these kinds of ads, right? If you didn't have to tell people the whole truth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so one of the things that the Populist Act does as part of addressing advertising is restores this prohibition on prescription drug advertising. As I recall, we're one of only a handful of countries on the planet that allows drug companies to directly market to consumers,
Mm-hmm.
for prescription drugs, right? Things that they cannot go out and buy. They can only
Mm-hmm.
go to their doctor and say, "Should I
Yeah.
be buying this?"
Mm-hmm.
And so again, most countries won't allow drug manufacturers to do this, and the United States would go back to the way it used to be. And if we pass the Populist Act,
Yeah. It's just another control
we could get rid
factor.
of all those
Be-
drug advertisements on TV.
Yeah, because as soon as you see it, it's just like, well, maybe I should try that one. I need to get rid of this pain. And so you present it yourself. So now you don't have to be concerned about, well, the doctor presented to you, because now you've been fed this information on the
Yeah,
on your television screen. And
yeah,
it's a very, common thing. And you will have those pop-ups on your computer as well.
yeah. And so this is one of the things when I talk about improving the quality of life for people, Joanne, is that these drug ads generally run on fear, right? You might have this disease, this might be wrong with you. And
Mhm.
now the
Mhm.
odds that that is actually true are very limited, right? They throw these ads out for, thousands, millions and millions of people to watch, hoping that just a few will buy their expensive marked up for, brand name drugs to pay for
Mhm.
all this advertising. But by spreading so much fear unnecessarily, you're bringing down the quality of life for people. So
Yes.
let's stop making helping. Let's stop facilitating people worrying about things that probably are not true.
And so that means that the Populist Act will be able to make them more accountable. Is that the word we're using?
I think that's a good word to use. Not to go off on too much of a tangent on advertising. The Populist Act also would remove advertising as a business write off. Is that
Mm,
so? If you're going to take up people's time, you're going to put ideas in their heads and make them
mhm,
sort them out, then taking up people's mental bandwidth is puts a cost on society, and
mhm.
so you don't get to write that off on your taxes. We,
Great.
we should definitely, if we don't have one on the schedule, we should definitely talk about advertising one of
Mhm.
these days.
I hope
So
you're jotting those down, because in the past two episodes we've come up with two different topics, and it's just like, oh, we're just so full of this knowledge and what we want to get to the people. Yes, yes, I want to
yes,
talk about
well,
that.
again, America can solve these problems. 95% of the problems in the country, Congress could solve if only Congress would act. But their incentive structure is all wrong because the blue team knows all they have to do is wait for the next election, and the red team, people will be tired of the red team, and so the blue team will get power. And then the red team knows sooner or later people get tired of the blue team, and then they'll get power back. And all they have to
Mhm.
do is wait for people to get tired of the party that's in power, and the pendulum will swing back. But we, the
Yeah.
people of the United States, we've got to stop just swinging back and forth. We got to grab
Mhm.
that pendulum and move us forward into the 21st century. And
And it's
that's what
and
I'm
it's
trying to do.
Yeah, and I appreciate you for doing this because the whole thing is to enlighten everyone to just say, "Oh, I can do something," instead of sitting back after looking at all the drug commercials and just saying, "Oh, I'm so sick of that." But yet you don't move off the sofa. You just listen to it. And we do have hope and we can take action. And again, this is what this is all about, right, Brian? It's bringing the knowledge to the people as into there's hope. And it's a great thing that we can make this act take place. That's
we
all we
can
need to do.
we can do if we can inspire Congress to pass it
Inspire.
before the
Mhm.
election, then we'll all come out ahead. So we talked about two of the prescription drugs, two legs of the triangle.
Mhm.
So that's one is bargaining, and then two is increasing competition in the marketplace. And then the third thing is public manufacturing. So
Okay.
if drug companies they don't want to bargain and the competition isn't working, that the United States would manufacture its own medicines. Insulin, for example. And we
Mhm.
pay in the United States, people pay about 10 times what other industrialized countries pay for insulin. And so California has recently set up a system to start manufacturing their own. There are many opportunities for for generics. Sorry to go back to competition real quick. The one of the things that the big pharma does to keep their profits up on these big brand name pharmaceuticals is that if a manufacturer is going to produce a generic one that would then be cheaper and cut into their profits, that they will just pay that company and say, hey, keep your product off the market and we'll pay you to do so. Because then that way they make more money and then the other company doesn't have to do anything and they make money. And where does all that money come from? It comes out of our pockets. It comes out of our pockets, Joanne. And so
Well,
that sort of behavior, that pay for delay, would become illegal under the Populist Act.
yes. And most people are concerned about the generic brand is less than. So they're not actually getting the potent uh part of what they should be getting. So will they get what they are needing from this medication if it is generic? We want to know that we're still getting full strength, and how are they able to make it a generic brand, and and is this the way we want to go when it comes to making something cheaper or less expensive?
Yeah, right. When you the brand name prescription drugs, right? They have to report, what the drug is, how it's made, all those kinds of things, and they get a
Mm-hmm.
patent on it
Mm-hmm.
for X number of years. I don't remember what X is off the top of my head, but when that patent runs out, then anyone else can use that same formula to produce the exact same drug
Okay,
and
same
sell it.
same pattern.
Exactly
Okay.
right. So it's all still regulated, but
Okay.
that's why the generics are cheaper because there's competition, right? The brand names are generally more expensive because they by law do not have competition.
Right. You're buying the brand name. Yes, I'm understanding now. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that clarification. Yes, that sounds great.
Okay.
Mm.
So we can bring the price of prescription drugs down in this country by passing the Populist Act. It's just one
Okay.
of many things that we could do in 2026.
Okay. And if the market fails, we make it
We
ourselves.
make it ourselves. Yeah.
Okay. Now that's a wrap for this particular episode. Is there anything that you want to do in this conclusion, Brian?
I'm just invite people to check out my website, votewithbrian.com, and learn how we can collectively bargain in 2026.
And on our next episode, it will be the Department of Peace Building. I don't know where he's going to go with this. So I want you to tune in so that you'll know. So again, subscribe, bring a friend, and we look forward to seeing you again. This is Justified Jewel Podcast.